Gina McCarthy served under President Obama as EPA Administrator from 2013 to 2017. Her glorious tenure brought about a crucial paradigm shift in national environmental policy, linking it to global public health. Gina led EPA initiatives, reduced air pollution, protected our water, reduced greenhouse gases, and strengthened regulations on chemical safety with the goal of protecting the health of Americans, especially the most vulnerable. She signed the Clean Power Plan, which set the first ever national standards for reduced carbon emissions from existing power plants, demonstrating our country's commitment to domestic climate action and spurring the international community's efforts, which helped bring about the Paris Climate Agreement. Now professor of the practice of public health at Harvard's T.H. Chan School and director of the Center for Climate, Health, and the Global Environment, we are crazy grateful to have Gina here with us today. Last year, we met Dr. Jay Lemery, associate professor in emergency medicine at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. Jay instantly became part of our EMA community. He is a contributing editor for the Journal of Health and Human Rights at Harvard, with an expertise in the effects of climate change on health and wilderness medicine education. Jay sits on the Institute of Medicine's Roundtable on Environmental Health Sciences, Research, and Medicine, and currently serves as a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and a fellow of the American College of Emergency Physicians. It is truly an honor to have both of them here with us. And I figure that when you get two brilliant minds who complement each other so beautifully, the last thing you want to do is to get in the way. So I'm just going to let them have at it. Gina and Jay, please come out.
All right, hi. We were reflecting yesterday how many in the audience maybe don't have a deep background on how climate change changes human health. So I thought maybe we'd start there and then dive into some of the specs. Maybe just an overview of how the human body suffers from climate change.
Well, probably you could do that answer better than I could, but let me give it a shot. First of all, I'm excited to be here with you, Jay. It's fun, and thanks everybody for being here. These issues are pretty important, and I thank you for your commitment. Liz, the first thing I want to let you know is that climate change, while it's a planetary issue, it's not about the planet. The planet really doesn't care whether human beings are on it. It's sort of our problem. And so the first thing that we need to understand about climate and health is that climate change is really the most significant public health challenge that we face today. That's what it really is. We need to personalize it. We need to make people understand that it's about them and their families. While we love polar bears and we care about the Arctic, I'm tired of seeing polar bears be the face of climate change. It's my kids, it's my grandson, it's my future granddaughter. That's what's at stake for me. That's how you need to talk about it and think about it, with passion. With personal passion and commitment. And if we can change that dynamic, we can change everything, because it's not about faraway places. And when I say it impacts health directly, because carbon pollution, that's carbon, C-A-H-B-O-N, carbon pollution is what fuels climate change, and it always comes action-packed with other pollutants. And so it is changing our health, and it is impacting our lives. It's creating air pollution problems that exacerbate the problems we already have. So it's about asthma in our kids. It's about lung cancer. It's about heart disease. It is about heat stress. That's always going to impact the elderly and the youngest among us. It's about poor communities. It is an equity issue. It is a justice issue, because all pollution attacks the poor and the kids and the elderly first, and that's exactly who's impacted. It's changing the places where disease is happening. So we've been fighting malaria for how long? And you see that continually now shifting as vectors of disease, like mosquitoes, like mosquitoes that cause Lyme disease in New England. We are seeing more cases of Lyme disease than anyone ever thought would exist, because it keeps changing the weather patterns, which changes where vectors are. are. It's changing our ability to be able to have water to drink and safe water to drink, sufficient water to drink. It's changing our ability to grow foods in different places, and it's actually changing the nutrition level of that food. So we really have to think about climate change as fundamentally impacting all of our health and our well-being, and fundamentally being a challenge of not just how we keep our world safe, but how we keep our world healthy. And this is a great opportunity.
That's awesome. It's
Not such a short answer. I'm sorry, we're done now, I think. Right?
all right, great. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, we talk about climate change. It's a disease of vulnerability,
Yeah.
full stop, right? The past year, you've taken a position at the Harvard School of Public Health, a center called C-Change, C-Change, the Center for Climate, Health, and the Global Environment. Just tell us a little bit about what your mission is and what you hope to achieve there.
Well, you know, I went to the Harvard School of Public Health basically right after the Obama administration. I did 2 fellowships. And I did one at the School of Public Health and one at the Kennedy School, and while both of them were fun, actually the Kennedy School was more fun, but it's where all the old politicians go. So I decided I'd go where an old scientist might want to go, which is to the School of Public Health. And basically because I wanted to have a center that really tried to communicate climate change differently. Make it more personal, make it more actionable. And so what some of the best scientists in the world are at the Harvard School of Public Health. That's where all of the air pollution, our understanding of air pollution came from. That's where our understanding of how climate is impacting the world and our neighbors and our communities. And so I wanted to be there, and I wanted to communicate it differently. Scientists are wonderful human beings, but maybe they ought to get out a little more because they don't speak very clearly about these issues. They're lovely, but, you know,
We can do better.
Let me just say they need some help communicating. And that's what my face is all about.
I want to just follow up on that. So in terms of communication, last year we wrote a book called Enviromedics, and it was taking the reader to the bedside. And at the end of it, we're like, this is just a downer. It's all bad news. So we had Jaden Smith help us finish it, just to kind of have that youth perspective. At C-Change, you have a regular missive called the Climate Optimist, and it's on your website. So I want to ask you about that, but also, how do you maintain that optimism when you're speaking to your constituency?
Well, I tell everybody that, you know, everybody expects me to act like a dead woman walking because this administration doesn't like anything we did and is trying to roll it back. And I always explain to them a couple of things. Number one, this administration doesn't like governing either, and they're not doing it very well. So our rollbacks are something to be concerned about, but they're not moving very quickly or successfully in undoing that because they don't follow the process. But the more important thing is that I try to explain to everybody that nobody follows a loser. I hate to say this, but you have to be positive. You have to be hopeful. You know, I have lived long enough to remember the 60s with pollution that was terrible. I've lived long enough to remember that I grew up with a black and white television that had 3 stations and you could only catch them every once in a while, because other than that, it was all static. The world has changed tremendously. I am not going to give up on our world and on my children's future by telling everybody that we can't address climate change. I know we have actions we can take today that will buy us more time, and I know there's investments in the private and the public sector world and foundations that are looking at those breakthrough technologies moving forward. So I get up in the morning, and while I give myself 10 minutes to be frankly really ticked off, after that I just pull myself up and I say, cut it out. I'm going somewhere. We're going to do this. So the Climate Optimist is about, you know, yes, this is a huge public health challenge, and EPA is a public health agency. Everything I have ever done in my life has been about advancing public health, not making people sick in the first place. But if we think about this, there's going to be huge investment in climate change because we're getting hammered by the costs already of climate inaction, not just in human lives, which are the worst, or property damage, but huge amounts of money, huge uncertainty. People are afraid And kids especially are terrified when they see these fires raging, their homes ravaged by floods. These things are going to keep continuing to get worse if we don't do something. But the really fun thing is to talk about the solutions, to tell people that we can do this together, to get over the fact that everybody's focused on Washington, where the place to be focused is in each and every one of our lives. That's what we can control. We can do work in our own communities, in our own schools, in our own businesses. We can do work on the internet and buy from companies that share our values. That's what we need to do. And if we all do that, we're going to send all the right signals. We're not going to have to worry about Washington being brilliant. We're all going to be able to make things happen. That's America. That's my country. That's my values.
Back to storytelling.
Yeah.
This room is full of the world's best storytellers. And so one of the questions I'm dying to ask you and to interact with leaders here is, how do we in environmental science and health meaningfully interact with the EMA community and the entertainment industry? And we have to be able to do it beyond this conference. Like, how do we sustain that?
Yeah, I think, let me raise a few issues. One of the reasons why I'm going out and speaking at a lot of places is that I cannot believe that climate science or climate change can ever be looked at as a partisan issue. I've worked for 6 governors in my life. 5 of them were Republicans. They sort of enjoyed clean air. They liked clean water and healthy food. Go figure. So we need to get this out of partisan policy. The only way we can do this is have normal human beings talk about climate change, not as the biggest problem that we're facing, but just as an opportunity for us to all stand up and act differently and demand different things of our leadership. I need you, who reach a lot of people, to build these ideas and this optimism into what you do for a living. We don't talk about climate change ever. It's seen as, ooh, that's too political. The hell with that, it's not political. This is reality, this is fact. And we have to build it in. You know, the entertainment industry can reach so many people, especially young people. And I'm not handing off my responsibility to anybody younger, because I got a good more 10 or 15 years to yap my mouth off and potentially still make sense. And I'm going to use that time. But I know who's going to drive the future, and it is young people. So let's talk about this. Let's build it into scripts, like it's a normal thing to talk about. Let's, instead of doing the next movie be about we're all going to die tomorrow, be it about looking at the future without fossil fuels. It happens to be the healthiest, best future we can buy. All of the things that people are worried about, ooh, it costs this, it costs that, to actually buy an electric vehicle. Have you driven one? You won't ever go back. So demand subsidies to allow everybody to have access to that. Why wouldn't you want to be able to generate your own electricity that doesn't go away, instead of pay utilities to build new grid systems? Come on, people. These are great things. Tell people what the future can look like. Tell them how they can respond to it. Make it part of everyday conversation. And let's figure out, how do we talk to kids about it. Kids program is so important. We do polling. Of course, everybody does polling. But what it tells us is that kids teach their parents. Kids can make a difference. If we can figure out how to talk to kids, not to scare them, but to embolden them in a future, like we did with recycling a long time ago, we can make change happen. And I just need to not to be a conversation that you can't bring up at the dinner table. And you can reach millions of people. And that's what we need to do, is just make it a challenge that's not too hard to talk about.
I want to talk about a proposal that is on the table, however aspirationally, the Green New Deal. Mm-hmm. It seems that there's a lot in there that really will affect the lives of working class Americans. I just wanted to know your thoughts on it, because it's really become a flashpoint, a political flashpoint, and maybe it shouldn't.
Maybe it shouldn't. Is that a hint, Jay? I should. The Green New Deal is awesome. Everything in it is a value that I share. Every single thing in it. It was never designed to be, let's do all of these things tomorrow and cost it out. It was designed to be some sheer values. It has driven huge energy, positive energy into the system. It has basically led to every Democrat who's running for president in 2020 to have to talk about climate change over and over and over. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's exactly what we need to talk about and think about. And I think the challenge that we all face is that if you look at the amount of coverage in the news of the Green New Deal, what you will see is that AOC, who is a courageous, incredible woman, who designed the Green New Deal. Fox News has carried many, many, many hours of programming to tell us how the Green New Deal is bad for us and how AOC is pretty much off her rocker. And what I see on balance is that I see NBC, CBS, ABC, and others giving so little time to these issues. 142 minutes of coverage among all of those over the entire year ever talked about climate change. And I don't see anyone providing coverage for how awesome this is, that AOC has the courage to do this, that we have a Green New Deal that we can begin to embrace. And I'm just tired of it, because as soon as a new idea like this comes out, especially from a young woman, God forbid, they have a right to a voice, you see all of the negatives come out, and none of us are there to defend it. None of this are carrying that balance. None of us are putting it in the news in a way that is really a valid look at what this means and says.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating, but we need to fix it. We just need a more balanced discussion.
As a follow-up on that, and we talked a little bit about this backstage, so maybe with less swear words, could I ask you how...
Damn! Oh, sorry.
Is the federal government broken? And Mayor Garcetti was here yesterday, and he's the vice chair of C40, and that's the consortium of the largest municipalities across the world. So should we be putting our efforts into affecting change at the state, local level, or at the federal level? Because I thought you had some great thoughts on that.
Well, right now, the job at the federal level is really just to defend ourselves against what's happening. You know, I worked at the local level, I've worked at the state level, I've worked at the federal level, and I can honestly say that very little new things or innovative things happen at the federal level. It all comes from the grassroots up. It all has to be tried and tested and get a breadth of support before you can really take aggressive action at the federal level. And so I think this is where I am working now. You know, Sea Change is helping states look at different choices they have for actions on climate so that we can maximize those that bring health benefits today. Because you bring diverse constituencies to the table. You build a momentum. That's what I want to see happen. We're working with cities and towns to look at what kind of plans can you develop. You know, the demand for climate action needs to start at the local level. Solutions need to be tried. And as soon as those solutions at the local level start taking off, then you'll find the state stepping up and claiming that they're being incredibly innovative and doing what every community is already demanding. And the same thing happens at the federal level. As soon as states start moving, they start moving. And so I don't think we need to, and we shouldn't, spend all our time in the fact-free beltway of the world. We ought to go into the real world, and that's where we can really make some change and make sure that momentum gets carried.
I'm going to ask one more question because we're almost out of time. Unless, Debbie, we can go another half hour? No? All right. We have about 50 kids here, and I just wanted to finish in the 12 seconds we have left. Top 3 action items, or maybe 1 or 2, for them moving forward.
First of all, continue to do what you're doing. Continue to make sure that none of us, old people or my daughters and my sons, escape the wrath of how you feel. Remind us that it's your future. Tell us that we haven't done what we needed to do to hand you a future that you are proud of or that we would be proud of. So continue with your walkouts, continue with your protests, get active at the local level, get active in your schools, because schools are behind the times and we have to get them there. Work with your fingers to buy products from companies that share your values. Make them tell you what is in their products and buy products that don't have toxics in them, that won't cause us cancer in the future. There are so many things to do. And frankly, keep marching. When everybody starts getting down, all I keep thinking about is the Women's March that I went to the day after the inauguration. It was so much fun. I won't give you any of my favorite signs because they all have swear words in them. But I read them, and remember, you know, when scientists say that climate change is basically caused by anthropogenic emissions, just remember this. Say 3 things when somebody comes to you and questions climate change. Say, number 1, it's real. Number 2, man-made emissions have caused it. Number 3, that is why women need to rule the world. Then we're done.
Thank you.